What we want most in our grief is just to be witnessed. And that doesn't take more than just, hey, I'm here to listen.
Welcome back to the TroopHR podcast. I'm your host, Taylor Bradley. Today, we're going to talk about grief. When I say grief, what do you think of? Is it a loss? Loss of a family member? Loss of a job? Loss of a relationship? Grief can apply in many different scenarios. It impacts every one of us at some point in our lives, yet it remains one of the least talked about realities in the workplace. We have policies for everything: performance, promotions, parental leave, and even office etiquette. But when it comes to loss, most organizations are reactive at best and silent at worst. And the silence can leave employees feeling isolated at the exact moment they most need support. Today's conversation is about changing that. It's about understanding that grief is not a moment, but a process, and explore what responsibilities leaders and HR professionals carry when it shows up at work. In this episode, I'm sitting down with CJ Infantino, the CEO and founder of Unvoiced. But before we get into policies and practical steps, let's start with the foundation by asking CJ, what is grief?
Grief is an experience. There are emotions tied to it. There's similarities that all of us have, and then there's things that are very personal to us. It's an experience that we all go through. Nobody escapes it, unfortunately.
It reminds me of almost a C.S. Lewis quote on grief is, it's not a state, it's a process.
Yeah.
And as we've all experienced different life events that cause us grief, right? It's usually attached to other strong emotions such as love.
Yeah.
What do you feel are some of the misconceptions folks have out there about grief?
The biggest misconception is that it has a timeline, and it doesn't. Like I said, it's very personal, and it is something that is nonlinear. So you could be okay 1 minute. So if we're talking about at work, maybe you're okay in the meeting, and then you go back to your desk and you break down. And this happened to me all the time. So my wife passed away in 2020. At the time, I was still working in tech, and I would be in a meeting, and thankfully I was remote, and I'd have to turn my camera off because just out of nowhere I would break down and uncontrollable. And then I could have a week where I'm okay. So that is one of the biggest misconceptions, is that it's a timeline. And I think the other, maybe not quite a misconception, but something that we need to expand our definition of grief. It's not just death, right? There's loss in so many things. There's, job loss, divorce, relationship loss. There's so many things that cause grief that it's nearly endless, yet we just don't talk about it, and we don't have the education and the words to help those that we notice are going through grief. And yeah, it is a process. I love that quote that you brought up by C.S. Lewis. It is definitely a process. It is a lifelong process.
First off, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing what you did. I lost my best friend about 10 years ago now. We were both paramedics with each other. He then worked for me directly as a direct report. And to your point, there were times where it could be years later and someone just says something.
Yep.
And it just triggers like this avalanche
right.
of emotion that you thought, okay, I thought I was past like this part.
Exactly.
Could hold it in. And even today, that sentiment, he would appreciate that we'd be talking about this. But today at we were leading the people team offsite, and we were talking about different ways that folks act sometimes. And my push to the group was always remember, you don't know what's going on in people's lives, and grief can manifest itself in very unique ways, and stress can as well. And when I was a paramedic, what struck me is as I would be on scenes where people had died, or we would inform families, that was a tough responsibility, an important responsibility to go inform families when that accidents would happen, is that the reaction to that news
Yeah.
or the manifestation of grief would come out in such unique ways to the individual. And it could be something as disconnected from what you would think of grief
Yeah.
as laughter
Yes.
or
Yeah.
confusion, denial.
Yeah.
You see the spectrum of it.
Mm-hmm.
So as HR practitioners, we come across this at work.
Mm-hmm.
When an HR practitioner sees that someone's going through this,
Yeah.
what would be your recommendation, even before making contact with the person, that the HR
Mm.
practitioner start to think about?
I appreciate you sharing that about your buddy and partner there. I think I wanted to just touch on that real quick. The event that happens to us, that's not the grief, right? Like the grief is what happens internally. It's not the external event. It's always what's happening internally, which is why that, like exactly you said, we react in so many different ways, and could be years later in the moment we react. Sometimes people laugh, like you said, and holding on to guilt if we do have a happy moment, because happiness is also an experience. Maybe the laughter or feeling joy or feeling elated, those are just signs that you are happy, and that does and can coexist together with grief because it is lifelong. So I think that's important for HR practitioners to understand, that it's not necessarily something you can see external in the person, because they could look like they're having a good time, or maybe they look like they're just angry, or like whatever the case may be. It's all the stuff that's happening internal. It's really important to have language around grief. It's important for managers and leaders to be trained. So, in one study, only 11% of managers were able to tie performance related issues to grief. So we almost cannot understand that grief is actually a physiological thing. We have brain fog, you don't sleep, you get sick. Like I could not focus for more than 30 seconds to 2 minutes. I slept 3 hours on average for an entire year after my wife died, and I was still expected to perform like nothing had happened. Like, okay, she's dead, you buried her, let's move forward now. But that's not the case. I was sick for 3 months from Halloween until the new year, like in bed sick, but I still had to show up for work. And these are not things that people are making excuses for. It's an actual physical thing, just like if you broke your arm. And I think having that context and understanding before you even go to the person is so, so, so important.
And this touches on an HR policy. It's always been a pet
Mhm.
peeve of mine, of this
Yeah.
this concept. I think you know where I'm going already with it.
Yeah.
This concept of bereavement leave
Hmm.
and it being 2 days
Yeah.
or 3 days.
Hmm.
Have you seen organizations do that well, or have a different or unique policy that you hadn't seen before?
Yes. And also no. So I have seen organizations who, with the individual, they gave them everything that they needed to be supported. However, this wasn't codified in policy.
Mm.
And while I'm extremely grateful that this individual that I talked to about this at the particular company got all the time that they needed, when you don't have it codified in policy, you are only adding on stress to those who are going through an extremely stressful event. Because then it's, well, maybe they meant that, or maybe they don't, or what's the expectation, right? It's like when we don't have these expectations managed, it's really hard for the organization, it's hard for the team, and it's hard for the person that's grieving. So it's so, so, so important. So I worked at Facebook for a while, and this was when my wife first got diagnosed. I was at Facebook. She got diagnosed with terminal cancer. We were out in California. The rest of my family was in New York. So we had nobody there. We had our 3 children. They were all under 6, I believe. And she had to go through treatment, and I needed time off. I had to take care of the kids. I had to take care of her. She was going to be out for 6 weeks. And we had just learned that she was going to die on my 30th birthday. And I went to HR and I was like, hey, I can't work right now. I need help. And their response was, we'll take FMLA. So I looked into it. It wasn't enough to pay my rent. So now I was in a position where I had to choose my family or work. Either we didn't have money to survive, or I work barely able to, but do that. So I ended up going to the COO at the time, who was Cheryl Sandberg. And I just said, hey, we have a huge gap in our policy, because if I had a child, I get 4 months off. You get money if you have a baby, you have sabbatical. Like, we have all this leave, but we have nothing for bereavement. We have nothing for medical things that are going to happen in a company of 25,000 people. Within maybe a week, I began working with HR and we got a policy created, and I had 6 weeks off full pay. And that policy is still in effect to today. And I've had numerous people come up to me when they found out that I was the one that helped get that policy created, saying that they're just so grateful that they were able to use it. And that was my intention. I didn't want anybody else to feel like this. So I think there are very few companies, very few, who are willing to codify it. Most of what I've seen and what I've experienced is, we'll figure it out in the moment. And that never works. When my wife actually passed away, I had a really, really difficult time with what I was given, to take off and to take care of my kids and stuff, and have to make the choice between paying for everything or just surviving.
That process that you went through with Cheryl, I think, is such a powerful story, because when we've advocated throughout my career, I don't want to single out a particular employer, is to adjust it. The normal response is, well, what if folks start making stuff up? Mm-hmm. Or where does it end, right? Yeah. We all go through grief and these things. Mm-hmm. And the way that you've positioned this, of if an organization could do this, mm-hmm. if you're looking at it from strictly a clinical perspective, this is pro-business, because this is going to create loyal employees. This is going to create folks that now have a new vision of Facebook probably in their minds.
Yeah.
It's consistent with the other things that we do with other mile lifestones, but for some reason, this one is different.
Correct.
What I appreciate too, because I'm sure many HR practitioners are now sitting in my seat, is I actually thought we did a good job until I heard the codified part, right?
Yeah.
There's a part of me like, we do a case by case. Mm-hmm. We have an extended leave window that's fully paid, but it's 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But what I didn't capture was the stress it caused you not being able to go to the portal and see something.
Correct.
You had to ask. And so that, I appreciate you bringing this up, because now it's making me willing to go.
That's perfect.
Yeah. To that point, when you discuss this with other executives, what are the other pushbacks or hesitations they may have?
This is where it's tricky. So I now do this for a living. I have my own company, Unvoiced, and we do corporate consulting to do exactly this, to help train leaders, to help with their policies, to put this stuff codified, and then coaching on the side. So it's very interesting, because on one hand, I'm coming at this from a humanitarian thing, right? Like, I desperately want to help people in their grief. It's my entire life now, because I know what that feels like. But there has to be a business aspect to it, right? It can't just be out of the good nature of a business. I understand that. That's just the reality. Well, 1 in 5 people who don't get support in grief will leave a company, and turnover is expensive. And then you have, I think it's 1 in 4 employees. And grief causes U.S. corporations $225.8 billion in lost productivity a year. This is not just, we need to support our people better. This is good for business too. And I think the biggest pushback is just, well, we don't have the time. We don't have the money. What happens if we let them take off for 20 days? And what does that mean for the work and all of this? And well, we can't, this is the problem, because it's not codified. And not only do you not have policies codified, we really need to have a return to work plan, because like I said, like, it's physiological. The extension of, oh my gosh, this thing happened to you, and the company sends you, a care package or flowers, and they acknowledge it, is beautiful and amazing. But that's not where it ends. That's where it begins. 3-month check-in, 6-month check-in, having these periodical check-ins, having the managers be able to recognize those symptoms, and having managers be able to create a plan with the employee to say, okay, when you return to work, this is exactly what it looks like. If you are having a difficult day, we are going to normalize mental health days and you're allowed to take them off. Take remote days if you need to. Like, find the flexibility that works within the constraints of the culture of the business and make that a full plan, because yeah, it's going to help the person who's grieving, which they really need that support. It's going to help the team. When I returned to work, everybody was kind of like, well, what's going to happen, or what's going on with CJ, or why is he not working as hard? Like, there's just all these questions in your team's minds, and we need team cohesion. We need the team to be supportive and to be like, okay, I have the expectation. This is what they're going to work on. This is what it's going to look like for the next 3, 6 months, a year, whatever it is that the company's willing to do. So these things are so crucially important. And these are the things that don't cost money. Like, policy costs money, having time off costs money. At least it seems like it costs money, but you actually end up saving money because you're going to retain that employee who will eventually give you better work. And that's exactly what ends up happening. There are simple things that can be done, but oftentimes we don't necessarily think of them. And that's where, like, I want to go and help companies and be like, here's everything that we can do. So those things are really, really important and help with that kind of pushback.
The pushback from managers of what happens if they take 20 days off.
Yeah,
My counter to that is, what happens if we don't give in that, right?
exactly. Yeah.
This is going to be performance, this is going to be a flight risk,
Yep.
those types of aspects. Now, using your experience, we don't just single out your former manager at Facebook, but
Right.
when you made this return to office, what do you wish things that either HR or that your manager knew about how to interact with you? And we can make this the hypothetical manager.
Yeah. And so I've had multiple experiences, because it was when my wife was diagnosed, and then when she died, I was somewhere else. So yeah, this will be hypothetical blending. And what I've seen, the biggest thing was the manager having the language to talk to me and to genuinely check in with me. Having silence makes you feel isolated, judged, scared. You're fearing for your job, and you just can't connect. So the best thing to do is not to avoid the grief, not to avoid the painful event, but is to check in. How's it really going? And treat them as a human in those moments. This is a difficult problem because as leaders, I was a manager myself, but like, as leaders, we want to solve problems. That's what we're there to do, right? We see the problems we have in the team and we want to solve them. We see the problems in the organization and we're like, oh, our team could do this. And that unfortunately doesn't work for grief. You can't solve it. So don't come at this as a solution base. This is more of a human experience, and come at it from the human experience. That is fundamental. One of the best things that a manager can do for their employee. And then having that communication with the team again. Hey, don't avoid it. Here's some things that you can do. As the griever, I could come into the team and be like, it's perfectly okay to ask me questions. If I'm not comfortable, I'll just simply say, I'm having a bad day, I'd rather not. And I think when you have the agreed upon in the singular understanding of how life is going to proceed forward, because we spend most of our life at work, most of us, it's very important that we understand how life is going to be. And when we can all have that commonality, it just makes things work so much smoother. And I'll tell you, when I felt supported, when I had moments of that, or I felt supported by my team, it literally transformed how I showed up at work. And when I didn't feel supported, it was the same thing. It was like almost impossible, almost impossible.
And oftentimes with these difficult emotions, managers tend to get concerned of, I don't know what to
Yeah,
say, so I won't say anything at
correct.
all. And I'll speak for myself. When I was going through some of these losses, I didn't care what you said. If you said
Yep.
something, right? Like, it
Yes.
was just
Yes.
like, give me a connection.
Exactly.
There tended to be a lot of grace, at least from my outbound side,
Mhm.
of, I don't care what you say, even if you
Yeah.
say something that's like, maybe wasn't what I wanted to
Yeah.
hear.
Yeah.
I was willing to be like, let's talk. Like, oh
Yeah.
gosh, someone's listening,
Yep.
and that was a relief. Now, a few more questions as we come in here for a landing. Is that throughout my career, I've been an executive when we've had loss in the
Mhm.
organization. We've had an
Yeah.
employee pass away,
Yeah.
and each one of those cases, there's been commonalities, but they really manifest themselves in the organization in really unique ways. Is there'll be someone that you hadn't even thought of that person interacted with, that hears the news and then is overwhelmed by it. What advice do you have for executives that they have had a death occur in their organization?
I think you honestly said it already. And that is, it affects unknown amount of people in your organization, and it affects them differently. And that's where having this culture of psychological safety, meaning it's already built into the culture of the corporation and the environment, where people can bring their humanity to work in a way that is authentic, in a way that feels supported. Because grief, pain, anger, that stuff doesn't end when you walk in the door or hop on a Zoom. It's with us. It's our human condition. And if you can first build that psychological safety, it starts with the leaders being able to be vulnerable enough, not saying that they have to expose their life, but just showing, hey, I'm human too. That will be the first step. So when events like this happen, because they're going to happen, I don't think I've been in a company where it hasn't happened. It's having the training for everybody, having accessibility to understand what is happening, understand what might be coming up. Because one of the worst things, that I'm sure you experience this, is that isolation of, is this normal what I'm feeling? Should I be feeling this way? Is this okay? And when you can normalize it, like you think about, oh, well, the custodian, they didn't know them, but they have to clean out their desk. Right? So it's like everybody could be impacted. So this is a company-wide thing. So leaders, they have to start. They have to show vulnerability. They have to build that psychological safety within the culture of their company. And then having that commonality, that common language and the understanding of what grief is. And I think pointing out what you said too, where it's like somebody could say anything. What we want most in our grief is just to be witnessed, because we are alone and we just want somebody to witness it. And that doesn't take more than just, hey, I'm here to listen with genuine curiosity and just let them talk. And that's it. It's hard, but it is simple at the same time.
Just taking the steps, attempting to communicate. And oftentimes with managers, there's a similar vein when you're talking with managers on when they deliver difficult news. Or even when I was a paramedic in paramedic school, they taught you delivering the news is about dignity to the person. It's not about you. It's going to make you feel awkward, but you need to do it in a way that provides comfort and clarity to the person that we're informing. And I try to apply that at any time and encourage our managers to, is it may make you feel awkward to go, CJ, how's it going?
That's right.
Or I know for one of my former managers, when I found out that my best friend had died, I just called and cried.
That's right.
And she just listened.
Yep.
Like she was just there with me. And then at the end, what I appreciated is she knew my best friend as well. She just made a joke that he always used to say to me at the end. And I had to tell you that it turned around my whole day, right? I was still emotional, but then I'm like doing the laugh cry thing.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then you're just like, dang it. So making that first step, making that connection is huge.
Yeah.
The other key takeaway from me today is codifying it, giving that person one less thing to worry about.
That's right.
Before having to reach out to you. Again, great that Cheryl did the reactive response that she did, and kudos to Facebook on that. Yeah. But make it proactive, right?
Correct.
And then if there was something else you wanted to leave the listeners with today, what would it be?
The biggest takeaway that I would want everybody to have is that this is a business problem. And it is a problem that we need to solve. And we are going into uncharted territory in a crazy time in humanity. We are going to live through one of the biggest transitions with AI, with everything that's happening. This is so much more than just, is AI going to kill us or is it going to take our jobs? This is going to be mass grief, like we saw with COVID. And our employees, they are going to need that safety from us. And now more than ever, this can't be swept under the rug or okay, well, if something happens, we'll do it and be reactive to it. We have to be proactive. We have to be more human than we've ever been in the age of AI, because we're all desperate for that connection. And that's really what this is about. So it's imperative that this work starts now and not in 6 months or a year or 2 or 3 or 4 when it's too late. As people have to shift their jobs or lose. So it's interesting because AI actually is changing what I used to do as a software engineer. That's what's been changed the most so far. And as jobs change or people lose jobs, they're going to need to find some way to feel useful and okay. Like you may end up hiring people who have lost that identity. That's grief. That's a loss. So this work has to be done. It's good for business, but more importantly, it's good for humans. This is a human experience that has to be addressed.
If folks want to reach out to you, CJ, work with you on this initiative, how do they go about doing that?
They can reach me and my team at unvoiced.com. And then you can find me on socials at CJ Infantino. You can visit cjinfantino.com as well and check out my coaching work that I do there. But the corporation stuff's Unvoiced, and highly recommend them to go there. Amazing team behind it. So couldn't be more proud of them.
That's incredible. CJ, I've learned so much. You've brought up emotions in me as well. But thank you for your vulnerability and sharing with it. I think we've all learned a lot today.
Yeah, appreciate it so much. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the TroopHR podcast. If you've liked this episode, we would encourage you to like and subscribe. If you would like to learn more about the TroopHR community, you can reach out to troophr.com. In the meantime, keep living the dream.